We're going to work something out. We have to look at their whole debt structure. You know, they owe a lot of money to your friends on Wall Street, and we're going to have to wipe that out. That's going to have to be, you know, you can say goodbye to that. I don't know if it's Goldman Sachs, but whoever it is, you can wave goodbye to that. We have to do something about, because the debt was massive on the island.
It doesn't mean that the federal government is going to be bailing out Puerto Rico's long-term debt situation, bailing out the bondholders. So what I think you saw there was the president focusing on the reality that in order to sort of get its long-term fiscal operation back in order, Puerto Rico is going to have to figure out a way to restructure its debt. I don't think you saw any indication there of a federal involvement in the bond situation in Puerto Rico.
All right, maybe not, but that is the OMB director trying to clarify what the president said. And I think I distinctly heard twice the president say, you're going to have to get rid of that. You're going to have to say goodbye to that. That's $74 billion worth of debt that Puerto Rico owes the financial community, largely in this neck of the woods, the New York metropolitan neck of the woods, to Charlie Gasparino on the not-so-surprising follow-up to that, a lot of Puerto Rican debt tanking in the open markets.
Down from 50 cents on the dollar, which we reported, I think, yesterday on your show, today down to 30 cents on the dollar. And, you know, Puerto Rican debt there's about 40 different sort of issues.
It's not just one thing.
But there's the main issue is the general obligation bond, which they just issued in 2014. So he's essentially screwing bondholders that came out in 2014.
But can he do that? Can the president really, he can put moral persuasion there, but what do you think?
He actually can. I mean, listen, if you look at you know, first off, Puerto Rico is not a state. You know, it's a territory. It's going to need some sort of federal assistance and federal guidance on, you know, whatever bailout is going to come from just their financial situation, minus, you know, don't even put in the hurricane relief stuff. So the federal government, as it did with New York back in the 70s, had some role. Remember they said Ford to New York dropped dead? Yeah. Gerald Ford, New York asked him for a bailout. Well, you know, Ford actually did bail out New York. There was a whole bunch of federal assistance. So
the Big Mac bonds and all that.
Well, that was a state. The state came in and did the Big Mac bonds to help provide debt for New York. So, but there was
time I thought they paid him back in hamburgers.
But listen, there was. I know, me too. It was known as Big Mac back then. Remember that? Felix wrote it.
Sure.
But there was federal assistance here and federal guarantees. So remember, the federal government always plays a role here.
But what happens to the companies with all this debt, and they hear the president say that?
Here's the thing, okay? Puerto Rico is going to have to issue debt in the future. Has to.
Right.
To rebuild, to have an economy. It's just the way it goes. I mean, you don't have to go heavily into debt, but everybody needs a little debt. You need a little credit card, and then you have to pay it off. And that's just the way.
And some reasonable strategy how to pay it off, right?
So here's what he did. In the spirit of Rex Tillerson, this was a pretty moronic statement, and I'll tell you why. You basically told every bondholder or bond buyer in the future, don't buy the debt because guess what? We'll just wipe it out when we get in trouble. And I think that's a really dumb statement that he made. We should point out that Donald Trump has made kind of similar dumb statements like this in the past when it came to debt. He once said that you should restructure the U.S. Treasury debt to lower the interest rates. Well, guess what? That's essentially a default.
That is a default. You're changing the obligation.
That would have just.
But maybe that he's slyer than we think. That maybe by putting that out there, he's forcing the lenders to, you know, take some haircuts, bigger haircuts than they have.
They'll take. Listen, you can.
There already are.
It's known as a cram down. You can cram them down to the max here. They don't have a lot of power here because Puerto Rico.
And this storm made it even more complicated.
But here's the problem: if you really screw them, okay, I was going to use another word.
Right. I'm glad you did.
These players will never come back and buy another bond from you again, and then you're in big trouble. If you can't have debt, if you can't issue municipal debt or any sort of debt, you can't build roads.
But doesn't Argentina prove that, you know, grudges die eventually?
Who's buying Argentinian debt?
Well, you didn't have to, I'm saying. There were enough other players in the market to come back and resurrect Argentina.
I don't think so. I don't think there's a vibrant market on Argentinian debt.
Have you ever been there? It's a wonderful place to go. They're thriving right now. Best steakhouses on the planet.
And it's cheap because no one has any money. By the way, look at the experience in New York City, and this will show you why what he said was. And by the way, Trump loves to screw banks over. That's what he did when he was a private investor. When his real estate and his casinos were going belly.
It was like he was giving them advice. Yeah, you can always walk away.
But guess what? Guess what? A lot of banks wouldn't deal with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
You know, the fringe banks dealt.
But didn't he come up with the expression, when you owe a little bit of money, the banks own you? When you owe a lot of money, you own the banks?
Yes, but he didn't come up with that. But that's
really?
But that's true. But here's the problem: if you screw the banks, they won't deal with you. And but here's the thing.
He didn't come up with that?
I'm 90% sure that one of my professors.
But you've just said that
one of my
I'm
professors
right?
in economics 101 at the University of Missouri came up.
I got you.
But I will say this: New York City basically had a technical default, missed one bond payment or delayed one bond payment.
That's all it takes.
And it took years for them to come back into the market. If you screw this up, if they really cram down the bondholders, well, guess what?
Yeah, but Puerto Rico has nowhere to go here.
They shouldn't totally cram down the bond. If they do what he says, they're screwed long term.